Have a look here. In my fourth post, I'm going to make sure this is the newest post we've created. But if I switch back to Firefox and refresh the page, oddly enough, it still shows up second. Okay, well that's because we're declaring a date, but we're not sorting based upon that date. So if I go into App, Models, Post, we can fix that on our collection. Let's sort the collection by a particular key. In our case, the date. But now notice, back to Firefox, refresh the page, my fourth post jumps down to the bottom. And that's because the default order is ascending. So we start with the oldest one first, and then we ascend to the newest one. For a blog, of course, we want that to be reversed. So let's say sort by descending the date. And now that'll solve our problem. Great. Next, we're still in that boat where every single time somebody loads our page across the globe, we are running this entire bit of logic. We read a directory, we parse all of the files, we map over them, we create posts, we sort them, and only then do we render the view. Now, especially for programming blogs, they might go a year without a single update, which means even if the performance isn't a huge problem here, it sure does seem wasteful to do it every single time the page loads. So let's return our caching, but this time, instead of remembering it for a specific period of time, I'm going to remember it forever. We'll give it a key post.all, and yet now, the cache is not going to clear on its own. We have to explicitly clear it as part of some operation. Maybe you do it manually when you create a new post, or maybe you have it set up so that whenever a new post is created, we clear the cache as part of that operation. Okay, so now we'll actually have a look here. I'm going to switch to my terminal. I'm going to boot up PHP Artisan Tinker. And now I have a shell for not just PHP, but my Laravel app as a whole. So with that in mind, let's look into the cache, and the key was called post.all. At the moment, there's nothing there. But if I switch back to Firefox, I refresh the page, now there should be something in the cache. So let's run it again, and there we go. This is now cached indefinitely, which means we're never going to run this code again. When the page loads, we instead reach into the cache and pull out what we last saved there. And we can prove it. Let's scroll down and let's create a brand new post, my fifth post. Tweak this. And if I come back to Firefox, we shouldn't see this. Give it a refresh, and there's no reference. And that's because, again, we're not running this logic. We're instead pulling from the cache. So let's clear it by saying cache forget post.all. Now, if we give it a refresh, we do see it because we reran that operation. All right, so now you're a little more comfortable with caching. You can reach into the cache like this, or you could say cache get post.all. You also know how to forget a key. And you can also put to the cache by saying put foo bar. And now if I grab foo out of the cache, of course we get bar. And by the way, alternatively, you could say cache foo bar. Or let's change it, buzz. And that would be effectively the same thing. It's just shorthand. So grab it again, and now we get buzz. Now, if we want to cache that for a specific period of time, you can do that as the second argument. So let's add 3 seconds. All right, we grab it, 1, 2, 3, but now if I run it, it should be cleared. And it is. Okay, so again, notice how you're becoming more and more comfortable. Now, my only note here is you might, well, depending upon the scale of what you're building, you may not want to keep all of this logic within your model. It may not seem appropriate to read the file system, to parse front matter. You may not want to do that here, which fair enough, but I think where we are currently, I'm going to keep it where it is. But for extra credit, you might start researching something known as service providers, which offer a place to bootstrap various components and systems in your application. And you can find some initial service providers here. But yeah, it's slightly higher level than we are currently. Okay, next up, we'll start learning about the Blade templating engine.